Let me ask you something. Has your cat ever just appeared? You didn't call them, you didn't move, you barely even registered that something was off inside yourself. But there they were, suddenly closer than usual, watching you differently, settling onto you like they had decided something. And you probably thought, oh, they just wanted attention. They didn't. Your cat was reading something in you that you hadn't even found yet. Something in your chemistry, your body language, the invisible signals your body broadcasts before your conscious mind is caught up. And here's the part that genuinely blew my mind when I first learned this. The system your cat uses to read you is so sophisticated, so far beyond what human senses can do, that there are documented medical cases where cats detected serious illness in their owners before any doctor did. Not one case, multiple, documented in medical journals. Today, we're going into all of it. How your cat reads you, what they can detect, and why you are, whether you knew it or not, the most studied subject in your cat's entire world. Let's go. Number 1, your cat lives in a completely different sensory world. Okay, so to understand how your cat knows things about your body that you don't, we first have to understand just how different their sensory world is from yours. Because we're not talking about a small difference here. We're talking about a completely different experience of reality. You navigate the world through your eyes first. Vision is your dominant sense. When something matters, you look at it. Everything else fills in around what you see. For your cat, scent is the primary channel. Not secondary, not backup, primary. Their nose contains around 200 million scent receptors. Yours has about 5 million. But even that number doesn't fully capture the gap, because your cat also has something you don't have at all. It's called the vomeronasal organ, also known as Jacobson's organ. It sits in the roof of their mouth and it connects directly to the limbic system, the part of the brain that handles emotion, instinct, and survival decisions. You've probably seen your cat do this. Mouth slightly open, that slightly dazed expression, like they're tasting the air. That's called the phlegmon response. And in that moment, your cat is pulling scent molecules into this secondary organ for deep chemical analysis. What it processes is not smell the way you experience smell. It processes hormonal signatures, pheromones, biological markers that exist completely below the threshold of human detection. In other words, your cat can smell your internal chemistry. Not what's on your skin, what's happening inside you. That is the instrument they're working with when they read you. And once you understand that, everything else in this video makes complete sense. Number 2, they feel your stress before you name it. So let's talk about the most common way this shows up in daily life. When you're stressed, really stressed, even the quiet background kind that you've learned to carry without noticing, your body goes through a cascade of changes. Your adrenal glands release cortisol, your heart rate shifts, your breathing pattern changes, your sweat composition is different. The actual molecular chemistry of your body in a stressed state is measurably, detectably different from your body at rest. And your cat can read every single one of those signals. Research has documented that cats respond to changes in their owner's stress state, becoming more attentive, more physically present, moving closer in response to the owner's physiological chemistry rather than their behavior. Not what you were doing, what you were chemically producing. This is why your cat sometimes seems to know you had a hard day before you've walked through the lock. You carried that chemistry with you. It arrived before you did. And by the time you turned your key in the lock, your cat had already read the report. And here's the part that hits differently once you understand the mechanism. Anxious owners very often have anxious cats, not because cats pick up on behavior, because they are literally bathed in their owner's biochemistry every single day. The stress you carry releases into the air around you. Your cat absorbs it continuously. If stress is the background chemistry of your home, to your cat, that is simply what home smells like. Your internal state is not private from your cat. It never has been. It lives in the air between you. And if this is making you think about your cat in a completely new way right now, hit that like button and subscribe to Animora CodeX if you haven't yet, because what's coming next in this video is where it gets truly extraordinary. 3. The cases that stopped researchers in their tracks. Okay, this is the section I have been wanting to get to, because everything we've covered so far, the scent receptors, the stress detection, that's impressive. But this is where it crosses into something that made medical researchers stop and pay attention. There's a cat named Oscar. He lived in a dementia care unit in Providence, Rhode Island. And over a period of years, Oscar developed a behavior that the nursing staff began to notice, then document, then publish. In the hours before a patient died, before the medical monitors showed critical changes, before the staff had identified any immediate concern, Oscar would walk into that patient's room, unprompted, uninvited. He would curl up beside them and stay. This was documented in a paper published in the New England Journal of Medicine in 2007. 25 consecutive cases. 25 times, Oscar chose a patient who died within hours. The staff eventually began calling families when Oscar entered a room. The mechanism is not mystical. The process of organ failure releases specific chemical compounds, ketones, through the skin and breath. To a nose with 200 million receptors, that chemical signature is detectable before it reaches any level that human senses or early medical monitoring can identify. Oscar was not predicting death. He was smelling it, earlier than anyone else in the building could. And Oscar is not alone. There are multiple documented cases of cats who showed persistent, unusual attention to specific areas of their owner's body, and the owner, following up with a doctor, received a diagnosis at that exact location: a lump, a growth, a change in tissue that had not yet produced any symptom. Your cat is not a medical device. They cannot tell you what they're detecting or where or why, but they are a biological instrument of extraordinary sensitivity. And when that instrument keeps pointing at something, the documented evidence says it is worth paying attention to. Here's something that was assumed to be false for a long time, and then a study came along and changed the conversation completely. For years, the scientific consensus was that cats don't really read human facial expressions. Unlike dogs, who have been extensively studied for their ability to read human faces, cats were thought to process their owners primarily through scent and sound. The face, researchers assumed, wasn't really part of it. A 2022 study proved that wrong. Researchers found that cats do distinguish between human emotional expressions, specifically between positive and negative facial states, and they adjust their behavior based on what they see. Cats exposed to their owner's relaxed, happy expression were more likely to approach, more likely to purr, more likely to initiate contact. Cats exposed to an angry or distressed expression on the same owner's face were more likely to withdraw, more likely to show stress behaviors, more likely to create distance. But here is the detail that matters most. This effect was dramatically stronger with the cat's own owner than with strangers. The cats weren't reading generic human expressions, they were reading their specific human, the person whose face they had been observing for months or years, the person whose baseline they had memorized. They knew what your face looks like when everything is okay, and they knew when it shifted. The face you make at 11 p.m. when you're worried about something and not saying it. The face you make when you're carrying something heavy and pretending you're not. The face you don't even know you're making. Your cat has a catalog of every expression you've ever made in their presence. You are not unreadable to your cat. You are one of the most legible things in their world. Beyond scent and expression, your cat is tracking one more thing that most people never think about: the way your body moves through space. Cats are built to read motion. Their visual system evolved specifically to track, analyze, and respond to the movement patterns of other animals. That system doesn't switch off when the animal moving is you. Your cat has watched you walk through your home thousands of times. They know your gait at baseline, the rhythm of your footsteps when you're relaxed, the pace of your movement on a normal day, the way you hold your shoulders when nothing is wrong. When that changes, when your gait slows, when you favor one side, when your movements become more careful or more deliberate, your cat notices. Before you've said anything,
often before you've consciously acknowledged it yourself. People recovering from illness or injury frequently report this. Their cat began paying unusual attention to a specific side of their body, investigating an area that had never been of interest before, staying close in a way that felt different from ordinary affection. They weren't being sweet, they were responding to data. Your body broadcasts your physical state in how it moves, and your cat, who has been watching you move for years, has a precise baseline to compare it against. When something is off, they know. You have never been invisible to them. Here is the part of this story that I think carries the most weight. Your cat is not just detecting what you are right now, they are carrying a record of what you have been. Every sustained emotional state you've moved through while sharing space with your cat has left a mark, not in any abstract sense, in the actual behavioral patterns your cat has built around you, the chemistry they've come to expect from your presence, the baseline they use to measure every deviation. A cat who has lived through a period of serious illness in their owner, a cat who spent months in a house heavy with grief, a cat who has felt the biochemistry of chronic anxiety in the air every day for a year. Those cats carry that, not as trauma necessarily, but as calibration, as the version of you that became their normal. And this is the part that should sit with you in the best possible way. Your healing changes what your cat absorbs. Your peace, the real kind, the kind that releases in your chemistry when something hard has finally passed. Your cat absorbs that too. They were there for the weight of it. They are there for the lifting. You have never once been invisible to your cat, not on a single day. Every version of you that has ever existed in that house, they were reading all of it, holding all of it, right next to you. So the next time your cat appears out of nowhere and settles onto you, before you assume they just wanted warmth or company, consider the other possibility. They read something you hadn't named yet, something in your chemistry or your face or the way you were holding your body, and they came anyway. That is not a small thing. That is an animal who has spent every day of your shared life learning to read you at a level no human being ever will. You were their most studied subject, their most continuous project, and they are, quietly, extraordinarily good at knowing you. If this video gave you something real today, hit the like button before you go. It genuinely helps this channel reach more people who love their animals and want to understand them at this level. Subscribe to Animora CodeX if you haven't yet. Every week we go deeper into the hidden science behind what your animal does every single day. You found this one. Don't miss what's coming. See you in the next one.